All right, it says it's going. I've got your book in my hand. The camera's green. All right, I'm not sure if this is normal, if this is showing up. Hold on. I asked for audience participation. Okay, Facebook's saying we are go, but I want to make sure. All right. Yep, Facebook says we're live. Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. If you're like me, this is a very, very unusual day. It just feels like the stress level keeps going up and up and up. So what I want to do is give you resources to help manage this season well. And as you know, I've been a homeschooling mom since 2008, and I absolutely love encouraging people. It is my passion in life. And so when I was thinking about resources and questions I had about how to lead my teenagers, how to encourage them, I immediately thought of one of our favorite authors, Richard Maybury, who is on the line with us now. He wrote The Clippership Strategy, and I can't wait to hear more about what Richard thinks about this time. He said I could call him Richard already, so I've asked for permission. Thank you so much, Richard, for being with us today.
Well, thank you, Katie. It's an honor to be invited on. And let me start by congratulating you for the work you're doing there in regard to homeschooling and just trying to make people more aware of what's really happening in the world. There's so few people that are doing that, and it's really a pleasure to run into somebody else who's helping out in that effort. Thank you very much from me personally.
Oh, well, thank you. So I have a lot of questions. I want to know how you got to be an economist. I want to know why you support homeschooling. But I think the thing that might be most helpful to the audience that's listening is, you know, since 2008, we continue to get, my understanding is we continue to get flooded with cash to help solve these debt problems. And now we have the most, I mean, here, you go ahead and summarize what's happened in the world economically for us, because I know you can say it better than I can.
Well, you're referring to the fact that the federal government and all governments create money out of thin air and then they pump it into the economy.
Right.
And why does that not cause prices to rise as much as we would expect? Did you read my little book called The Money Mystery?
Ooh, I have read that. I was trying to think, how many have I read? I think I've read 8 of your books. I've got 3 on my desk right now to show our listeners. Tell us more about that.
Okay, that's a little book explaining something called velocity. And velocity is the speed at which money changes hands. Very few people talk about that. It's kind of in some cases, difficult to understand. It's one of those more esoteric concepts, but it's really crucially important and has been for, I would say, better than 10 years. And kind of a shorthand way of looking at it is that, well, let's back up a little bit and say money responds to the law of supply and demand, just like anything else does. If the quantity goes up, the value goes down. And if the quantity is reduced, the value goes up. So normally what we've seen all through history is when a government injects a lot of money into the economy, the value of each individual unit of the money declines and prices rise to compensate. So that the word inflation originally meant an increase in the amount of money, which leads to rising prices. The mainstream press has worked that in recent decades, and they've just used the word inflation to mean rising prices, which is very, very misleading.
Yeah.
Inflation is an increase in the amount of money,
right,
which leads to rising prices.
Right.
Now, why have prices not risen so much in the last 10 years or so, even though the government has pumped in trillions of dollars into the economy? And that leads us to velocity. If the government pumps the money out and, you know, for example, people are worried about something, there's a terrible fear in the world for some reason, they won't spend that money. They'll maybe put it in a box in their garage, or they'll bury it in the backyard,
right.
or they'll save it in some other way, but they won't spend it.
Right.
Because when people are scared, they want cash.
Right.
And so what happens, or what has happened over the last 10 years, is the government has pumped out huge amounts of money, but people have been very reluctant to spend it. And this reluctance to spend is the same thing as taking the money back out of circulation. If the money is sitting in your garage and you're not spending it, then it has no effect on prices.
Right. Okay. So let me interrupt you for just a second. I had this moment of glimmer of hope moment, because we had read, we're not all the way through Clipper Ship. We actually got to Clipper Ship kind of later. We like to go by copyright date. And so when we're reading your material, we actually started with, are you liberal, are you conservative, or are you confused, in 2016, because my son came to us and said, are we Democrats or Republicans? And I handed him the book and I said, you tell me. So that was what kicked us off. And then where we're at right now is we've gotten to the point where we understand, and this was amazing. So I love how you tell the story of how the Clipper Ship strategy. Do you, I think maybe I might just jump to this, because what I really want to hear from you is what's happening now and how we can best support our young people and help them look for economic opportunities. So that's what I want to get to. But so my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, the Clipper Ship strategy is what happened when a group of merchants decided to build faster ships so that they could get goods from the East Coast, where like hammers and shovels and stuff like that were needed for the gold rush in 1849, they were needed in California, but they couldn't get there fast enough. So whoever could get there with the supplies fast enough wins. It's like today, I would guess this would be like whoever can ship the most Charmin would win, whoever can get the toilet paper where it needs to go. And so, but that gave me that, plus a lot of the little details in your books that talks about positioning yourself near economic funnels and what those are, and how in any economy, if you're near a government funnel, for example, you're going to have access to more resources than maybe you would if you were further away. So that businesses and economies around military bases, for example, will always be more stable than those that are just kind of out in the middle of nowhere. So did I get that right?
That's right.
Okay. So as we're looking for these strategies now, one thing that keeps coming up in my line of work as a coach and as a speaker is find your niche, find your niche and become the best at that and go with that. But is that what you would tell the average homeschool student?
Oh, yeah, definitely. But I would be cautious about the word niche. That kind of tends to confine a person to a very limited area, which can be a good thing. But I would encourage all young people, I would encourage everybody to see yourself as having more than one niche. And your primary niche is to be an entrepreneur.
Okay, yep.
Okay, so you're looking for opportunities. You're a person who obeys the old rule of find the need and fill it.
There you go. You'll always have work that way, right?
That's exactly right. Yes, you just find a need and fill it, and that's what an entrepreneur is. It's a person who is economically behaving according to that rule. And incidentally, let me point out that means you have to be of service to other people. You can't make money under that rule unless you are being of service to other people. So it's a very fulfilling sort of thing emotionally, because you know if people are paying you for your production, that they value that. That's important to them, and that you're improving their life. So good. The entrepreneur specializes in finding needs and filling them. Now, you can, within that, you can be a doctor, lawyer, or Indian chief, or whatever profession you want, whatever you're good at, but be first an entrepreneur. Think in terms of not just being a whatever, let's say a plumber. That's a very good occupation. You're going to be a plumber who looks for the place where the need is greatest. That's the most important thing, is you're looking for places where needs are greatest. That's where you can make the most income from it, and that's where you'll be the most help to people. So it's a very good rule to just generally grow up seeing yourself as an entrepreneur. That's your first niche, and then maybe you have other niches too. I mean, I've had like 25 different jobs during my life, so I've found a lot of needs and have filled them in various ways.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I look at myself as an entrepreneur.
I wanted to thank you for your military service. Tell us about that.
I appreciate it when people say that, but I didn't do much that I'm proud of. I was part of the 605th Air Commando Squadron, and we were in special operations in Central America. And to put it bluntly, I wound up helping to kill a whole lot of innocent people just because their government was in bed with the federal government. And that's pretty much what U.S. foreign policy is about, that young people are never told about, what the U.S. government really does in other countries. And I'm the voice of experience on that, and it's something that I'm not proud of at all. Now, there were some few things that I did that I was proud of. I was on a rescue mission one time. We saved some lives. I'm glad of that. But basically, my 4 years were devoted to helping the federal government prop up crooks and tyrants in other countries and kill the people who were trying to defend their families against those people.
Whew, that's a heavy segue. But I think you're tapping into something that a lot of people can relate to, which is I did something in my past that maybe I thought was the right thing. My motivations were in the right place, but the outcome was not what I would have wanted. And I wonder how that speaks to where you are in life now, and how you've used maybe that experience to decide how you want to impact the world now.
Yeah, it had a big effect. There is no doubt about that. I don't carry a feeling of guilt about this, because I was 20 years old when I went in, and I didn't know anything about geopolitics other than what I had been, the propaganda I had been taught in the government-controlled schools. Now, I believed all that when I was a kid, and I was 20 years old, and I wanted to go out and be a rescuer of the world the way that we were taught the federal government is, and found out that the federal government is a pretty dirty operation.
I would like to take the interview in a slightly more focused on how we can help our young people today. So let's go back to funnels and economic opportunity, shall we? I don't mean to interrupt you. I don't mean any disrespect, but I wasn't intending to talk about those things on this interview today. So I do want to redirect it. So tell me about how you became interested in economics.
Well, that was actually part of the Air Force experience. One day we were walking down a street in a foreign city, and this was in Latin America, and we're walking into a hotel. We just had a big dinner, and we're looking forward to bedding down in a nice hotel and go to sleep. Well, there was a line going in the door, and I had to stand and wait for a few minutes, and I looked across the street, and there was a woman there with 3 little children, and she laid down on the sidewalk and laid her head on a concrete step, and I realized that she was bedding down for the night there, and that step was her pillow, And
Wow.
then she gathered the three kids around her and pulled her cloak over them.
Mm-hmm.
And I assume that's how they spent the night.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at that and I thought, why the difference between her and me?
Mm-hmm.
And it really, I mean, it still affects me when I think about it.
Mm.
And that's started me wondering, what's different about America? Why is America so much a better place to live than where I was then and than most of the rest of the world?
Mm-hmm.
And I learned that it's one of the main things is the U.S. Constitution, the work that the American founders did, and they triggered off what in those days was known as the system of natural liberty, which today is called industrial capitalism. And that is what led America to be the wonderfully prosperous place that it is in comparison to most other places. But it took a lot of learning, to put all that together to answer that question. But that question has always been foremost in my mind. Why the difference between her and me?
So you sound like an economist with a really big heart.
Well,
that's beautiful and delightful and so wonderful to hear. So do you have children and grandchildren?
No, I don't. No. I've been married 52 years.
Oh,
but,
wow.
we had no kids. But, we have relatives and friends, and I was a teacher for a while, and my wife was a teacher. So, we know young people pretty well.
That's awesome. And how did you decide to write the Uncle Eric series? Was there somebody specific that you personally knew that inspired you to do that?
Let's see. Yeah, actually, I had written a little book which later became Whatever Happened to Penny Candy, which is the introductory economics book. And my sister thought that thing was really great, and she wanted to publish it, and so she offered to do that. I said, sure, go ahead. So we produced that. It was very successful, especially among homeschoolers. And then that just led to the other 10 books. And all of them were done by her and me, working as a team.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, who was the most influential person in your life growing up?
I'm sorry, I'm a little bit hard of hearing.
Oh, me too.
Oh.
Who was the most influential person in your life growing up?
There are two. The first was, I'm sure you're too young to remember, a guy named Don Herbert, who on television played Mr. Wizard.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you remember?
I don't remember, no, but I've heard of him. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Mr. Wizard showed up on TV, I think once a week, I don't remember. And that was when I was probably 7 or 8 years old, and I watched him for years. And Mr. Wizard had a little laboratory behind his house, and the kids in the neighborhood would visit him, and he would teach them various scientific principles. He would do experiments in front of them and explain to them what was going on. And what the main thing Mr. Wizard taught me was that I could understand how the world works.
Ooh, say that again.
Mr. Wizard taught me that I can understand how the world works. And I learned that, when I was like 8 years old. When everybody was telling me, nah, you'll never understand this kind of stuff. It's only the experts understand this. And Mr. Wizard's message was anybody can understand it if it is taught well.
Ooh, I like that.
And so I grew up with that attitude that I could, if I wanted to understand something, if I was baffled about something, I could figure it out. And okay, that was, Mr. Wizard was number one, and then number two was my grandfather, who was caretaker of a cemetery.
Oh, wow.
And he was a man who was way, way ahead of his time. He was when he was a young man, I'm talking talking 18 to 20 or so. And this is around the turn of the 20th century. So we're looking around year 1900 or so. He lived for a while working as a farmhand for a family of African Americans. And he lived in their house. And I'm white, he was white. He lived in their house and took meals with them, spent the evenings with them. He became part of the family. And for the rest of his life, even in, this is the early 1900s, right? Yeah, early 1900s. He was a very open-minded, accepting man, and he taught me to see people as individuals. And one of the messages, when somebody would say something about African Americans that wasn't so flattering, he would always say, "Those people are just like us." And I grew up with that attitude. And he was known in the town as an extremely honorable man. He had a third-grade education, and he was essentially a ditch digger, a grave digger. And yet, his friends were doctors and lawyers and so on. And he was just known as an extremely honorable man. That during a family's worst time, when a loved one has died, these doctors and lawyers and all would say, "You follow what Henry Maybury tells you to do, and you'll be okay."
Oh wow, that's precious.
And I grew up with that.
So was that rooted in what belief system was that rooted in? Was he Jewish or Christian or something else?
He was raised Catholic, and I was raised Catholic too.
I was too.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. My life was full of nuns, and I am in my early life, and I am so glad of that. Those women were really special people.
Where did you live growing up?
In Hamilton, Ohio.
Okay, my mom was in Boston, Massachusetts with the nuns in the 50s. So.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
No kidding.
Oh yeah. We're Boston Irish, and I'm also Italian. So.
Okay. Right. Well, what I got from all that, from both my grandfather and the nuns that helped to raise me, it was a feeling of ethics is a essential part of life. It's not something that's anybody's opinion, right and wrong or not opinion. You have to obey certain rules, and if you do, life will reward you, and if you don't, life will punish you.
I love that. I love that you call it is it called the 2 rules? Is that what you call it in your books?
The 2 laws.
The 2 laws.
I'd like to call them the 17 words, because that implies that every individual word is extremely important, and I kind of tend to think legalistically, so I like that precision. And the 17 words. Wait,
let me see if I can pass the test.
Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, part of the 17 is do all you have committed or promised to do.
I call that do all you have agreed to do.
Do all you have agreed to do. Oh, I didn't get a perfect score on that one. Okay. And then the second one is, oh no, I'm failing. I blanked on it. Wait, I've got to look it up. Hold on. I'm not sure it's in one of the 3. I must have grabbed the wrong stack of books. Go ahead and tell us what it is.
The second law is do not encroach on other persons or their property.
Right. Okay, say them both for us again.
Do all you have agreed to do, and do not encroach on other persons or their property. And those are the 2 laws that make civilization possible. And the first law is basis of contract law.
Right.
Almost everything we do is a contract in one way or another, whether anybody ever taught you that or not.
Right.
Almost everything in human interaction is a contract.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second law, which is do not encroach on other persons or their property, that's the basis of tort law and some criminal law.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Those 17 words, you'll find them taught by all religions, by all legal systems going back at least 4,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
They are the fundamental rules for human beings that create civilization.
Yeah.
And so they are the foundation of the 11 Uncle Eric books and of my newsletter. That's called Early Warning Report for investors. Also we started a new company to teach ethics based on those two laws. And the company's name is Ethics Solutions.
Ooh, so what is Ethics tongue-tied. Ethics Solution, what is their target audience or age group that you're creating this information for?
Okay, it's Ethics Solutions with an S at the end, plural, Ethics Solutions. And it's for anyone. It started out as being mostly for business people to use to train their employees. It takes about 3 hours for the employee to read the handbook, and then there's a computerized assessment that you take that's maybe a half hour long, and that if the person passes the assessment, then they are issued a certificate. And right at that point, it's printed out on your computer that shows that you have passed the Ethics Solutions course and you know how to practice good ethical judgment. You do not see right and wrong as a matter of opinion. There are some fixed laws that you regard as unbreakable.
That's great.
And those are, the 17 words again. Do all you have agreed to do, and do not encroach on other persons or their property. If you look through your life, this is something I like to encourage people to do. Just think about the people you know that you like. You really like being around these people. And there are other people you don't like being around. Well, the ones that you like being around, I will bet you, are people who follow those 17 words.
Yeah, that's so good. I talk a lot on my Facebook Lives about the treasures of our soul. I'm not sure if you're familiar with author Henry Cloud, but he's written a book called Boundaries, and he talks about the things that we're responsible for. And so whenever I get a chance, I love to bring those in. So we are responsible for our feelings, attitudes, beliefs, behaviors, choices, values, limits, talents, thoughts, desires, and who or what we love and trust. And Richard, I am so overjoyed to get to talk with you. I hope that everyone who listens will be inspired to read the Clippership Strategy, that there is always an opportunity for hope when we look for solutions, and that we can provide those solutions, and it can benefit not just us economically, but the people that we're seeking to serve and making the world a better place. So I just thank you so much for all that you have done to put these wonderful books in the hands of parents. I know it was a labor of love, and I just want to thank you so much for that. Thank you for taking my call, and God bless you today.
Well, thanks. And again, you're doing a really great job here, Katie, and it's good to meet you, and I hope we can get together in person sometime.
Oh, that would be wonderful. I'm from San Diego, so maybe when I'm back on the West Coast.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much. Big hugs to your wife, and have a wonderful day. God bless you.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, I want to thank you, friends, for joining me for this live interview with Richard Maybury, my favorite economist. And the reason I love him so much is because in his books, it's all about taking ownership of your gifts, talents, and abilities, and looking at the world at large and finding out how you fit in the story. I'm so convinced that we're all here for a reason, and that we all fit in the bigger story of history, or her story, if you're leaning that way. So I'm just so excited about this time. I just see opportunities everywhere I look. It's a little overwhelming, and maybe you felt a little overwhelmed with my Facebook lives, because one day I'm talking about my solutions for how I manage my own depression, and then another day I'm interviewing, a naturalist about playing in the garden. But those, for me, those all go together. I love being able to talk to someone like Richard Maybury and recognize the gifts that he brings to the table, and then also talk to somebody maybe not as accomplished, but who still has a magnificent gift. I'm thinking of my good friend Joy Finch right now, who is, I feel like she's just, oh, she's just an incredible person, but she's shared with me that she's got a passion for organizing, and she's started to do some Zoom teaching for students, and also she led a group yesterday. And so I'm seeing the magnificence of Joy, and I'm like, that is so good. So if you're feeling like, well, Katie, you're kind of all over the place, and I'm like, well, I'm still trying to figure out what it means for me to provide a service for you. That my strongest gift is to encourage and acknowledge what you're good at, what you want to see happen, what you want your legacy to be. That's my legacy. So thank you for joining today. I feel really good right now, and that's because I'm doing my God-given gift. If you haven't figured that out, I would love to have a conversation with you. Send me a message, and I will do my best to schedule something right away. There's no reason for you to be hurting in this season. Even though it's scary, there's a way to get through it, and I just want you to know you're not alone. So may the Lord bless you and keep you. And I will be praying my way through the day as the new information comes out, as are you. And feel free to reach out for prayer or brainstorming. Let me know. Thanks. Have a good one. Bye-bye.